In the circumstances, the Lord has provided an opportunity, and I now called on the member for my card to lead us to the throne of grace.
A reading from the 23rd Division of the Psalms. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley, the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they do comfort me. You have prepared a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Let us pray the Lord's Prayer. Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good morning, honorable members, and good morning to you in the gallery. I understand that we have a special group with us in the gallery this morning that I wish to recognize. It's a number of persons who are college recruits with accounting backgrounds, a part of a grouping that the government will be reviewing and having consideration for with respect to the Ministry of Finance recruitment exercise. Can you please stand for us, please? Thank you very much. Honorable members, when the business of this House suspended on yesterday evening, the honorable member for Kalani had reserved the floor. The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Anne's.
Sorry to interrupt, but with the consensus of my honorable leader, when I gave my speech last night, I undertook to lay on the table a copy of the newspaper I quoted from, and I just want to, for the sake of the record of the House, lay on the table an issue of the Daily Tribune, Tuesday, January 7th, 1964.
Order that the document be brought up.
Somebody doing one?
Honorable member, I trust that this is not your only copy.
No, no, Mr. Speaker, I kept the original as I said I would.
Thank you very much. Order that the document do lie on the table. The chair now recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's so nice to see so many reverends in this honorable chamber. And before I start, Mr. Speaker, I want to give God thanks, first and foremost, who has guided my life and has been good to the Bahamas and Bahamian people. Mr. Speaker, when I left home, I was told to be myself. Don't try to be Peter. I am not trying to be Paul. Don't try to be Jeff. So just be myself. Yep. So, Mr. Speaker, I will be myself. There'll be no changes to do. For all those who concerned and want to know what I had for breakfast this morning, let me tell you, I did not have stew fish. Corned beef. I did not have corned beef. Fruit. Believe it or not, I had popcorn. And Mr. Speaker, I hope we won't have too much pops in here today.
We shall see, we shall see.
The king and queen of popcorn.
Mr. Speaker, this is my third consecutive term here in this honorable chamber. And I want to thank the residents of Kalani who has had faith and confidence in me, who have repeatedly sent me back here. And I especially want to thank my executive, because without them, I would not have been here. The amount of work and the type of work and representation they does for me, Mr. Speaker, is unimaginable. As you know, as leader and prime minister, I travel quite a bit, but they've kept Kalani in great order and in great shape. I want to personally thank I don't want to call names, Mr. Speaker, because if I forget one name, then I would catch all hell when I go to my constituency. But I see my chairman is here, and therefore I want to thank you, Sterling, for coming here today. Mr. Speaker, when I first came to office in 2007, we won the Kalani seat from the PLP, and that year I won by about 299 votes. Then in 2012, we won again, but that was increased to 53% of the votes, which was a little less than 800. Then in 2017, I was returned and I won again by 73% of the votes, by a majority, Mr. Speaker, of 3,094 votes.
Yep. Confident.
Mr. Speaker, as I stand here, I want to thank Dame Margaret Pinling, who I thought did an outstanding job. And she had fit the role, Mr. Speaker. She carried that position with both dignity, pride, and respect.
Yes.
And I want to personally thank her on behalf of both myself, my wife, and the government and people of the Bahamas. But, Mr. Speaker, I would remember December 7th, 2016, 11:20 a.m. and 20 seconds beyond that. So 20 seconds beyond 11:20 a.m. in 2016, sitting in that same chair where the leader of the opposition, I was dismissed, fired from my position by my then colleagues, not this crew, they wouldn't do that.
None of us. None of us. None of us.
I would not bring dirty linen out in here. That was the problem I had. Every time I spoke to the press while I was speaking to my colleagues. But I'll leave that as it may be. Leave it. I have the emails. Yes, yes. So we knew who were. That's in my diary. The email was copied. I have it, you know. You want to see it? But the emails were copied in hard copy. In hard copy. I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. But Mr. Speaker, at 6 p.m. that evening, at 6 p.m. on the 7th of December, I was summoned
Pearl Harbor.
to Government House, where the Governor General presented me. Yes, Minister Wells was with me all through. And before she presented me with the letter of my dismissal, she said to me that this is not what she wants to do. This is very difficult. And Mr. Speaker, watching the Governor General, she almost breaks down in tears. Because she said to me that this was not right. Yes, he was there. This was not right. And she know the pain that I'm going through, because her husband has gone through similar pain throughout his career. And I reminded the Governor General, Mr. Speaker, that she has a job to do. And regardless of how she may feel about me, she must do her job. And it has nothing to do with her personally. But I understand what her job is and what she must do. And she reluctantly, Mr. Speaker, gave me my letter of dismissal at 6 p.m. the 7th of December 2016. This is all recorded in my diary. And some things, Mr. Speaker, that are recorded in my diary, I cannot mention now. My diary cannot be published now, because if it's published now, I will be dead. But when it's published after I'm dead, no big problem, no deal. I'm gone. And my kids will deal with that. They will cuss them, your father was this, that, whatever. But I would train them to withstand the blows.
As you did.
As I did. So, Mr. Speaker, the opening of Parliament, a lot of people don't know. The opening of Parliament could have been a disaster. Many people did not know.
Yeah.
The Governor General presented herself with grace, with poise, and a professional manner. Her speech never arrived.
Never good.
Yep. Never arrived, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, each of us as parliamentarians were given a little pamphlet. About this size, a little pamphlet. And the writings, the writing in this, Mr. Speaker, I could not stand up and read. And the Governor General had not received her speech. At that point, I was very concerned and frightened as to whether somebody was intentionally trying to embarrass us or trying to embarrass the Governor General. I still do not know. But I don't know whether it will sabotage or not. Everyone became very concerned as to what is to be done. I had my copy with me, and I asked them to give that to the Governor General. But I was concerned, Mr. Speaker, because she's older than I am. She wears glasses like I do. And even with my glasses, I could not read it. She took that little pamphlet, Mr. Speaker, and she read that in a professional manner with no mistakes. With no mistakes. Not one. Speaker, that was a most outstanding presentation I've ever seen done by a government. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to welcome the new Governor General, who would be coming on, be sworn in sometime at the end of this month, Excellency C.H. Smith. And I'm sure he would do an excellent job. I'm sure he would have even watched the performance of Dame Margaret Penley, who has set an example for all future Governor Generals. Now, Mr. Speaker, let me get on to Kalani before I go into my combative mode. Mr. Speaker, we have done some work in Kalani, but Kalani needs much more. And we cannot complete it. Well, it could be completed in 5 years, one term, what we want done. But if I were to do that, I would be very selfish, placing demand on the Minister of Works when there's an entire country, entire Bahamas to deal with. And therefore, I take my time, and Kalani understands that there are other priorities that has to be dealt with, and they would be dealt with as quickly as possible. The road, West Bay Corridor, leading to Lifer Key from Blake Road, moving west, Mr. Speaker, has been a disaster of a road for the past 30 plus years. And I was not able to get that road repaired. But I want to thank the Minister of Works, who had seen to it that our West Bay Street corridor had been repaired. And the new water lines were placed in, and the residents and commercial areas of Kalani were very pleased with how it was done, because there was very disruption both to the residents and to commerce. So we were very happy in the professional manner that our road was repaired. And in a matter of weeks, be it 1 week or 2 weeks, so Kalani residents would know, I understand that the white paint, to stripe our road, would be done, because you must wait a certain length of time so that the tar can mature, and whatever language they use. And after that maturity and delivery, then our road is painted. So that should be done in a matter of 1 to 2 weeks. Then Mount Pleasant, the basketball court was severely damaged, and the gazebo at the basketball court was destroyed by the last hurricane. And therefore we had constructed a new gazebo at our park, Mount Pleasant, and we also repaired our basketball court. But Gambia, Mr. Speaker, Gambia, the area that I live And I'm always rowing with my chaps. When they ask where do I live, I say I live Gambia Village. But they say, no, you
You on the border, man. You on the other side.
it's the same corridor. But Mr. Speaker, I try to convince them that I'm living Gambia Village because I'm trying to convince them that it'd be easier, the Minister of Finance, when he's assessing for real property tax, it should be by zone. Zone. And you pay according to your zone and square footage. So Life at Key may be $100 per square foot. Some parts of West Bay may be $80. But Gambia may be 50 cents, and therefore I'm within that zone. 50 cents. But I can't convince them, Mr. Speaker. So I have 8 more years to convince some of them. Some going with me. Some will retire with me. But the young boys whom I leave behind, I guess I would not need to convince them anymore because I would then go into my retirement mode and go do my farming exotic fruits that I want to do. I want to get into exotic fruits, Mr. Speaker. You know, those are fruits, in case individuals don't know and farmers don't know, they are low or no maintenance. So you just plant, you pick, and you eat. Simple. Then, so in Gambia Village, I don't know. I have to see how the licensing goes.
The commission got to report first.
Yeah, when they report. But in Gambia Village, we've gotten a new basketball court. And the basketball court, I don't know what type of material they use, but I mean, it must be outstanding material, Mr. Speaker, because an old man like me could now dunk. You know, if I put on special tennis shoes and it's like it has some form of turbo in the tennis, I can bounce. So, Minister, you've done an excellent job. My park, I'm sure my basketball court is better than yours. So we got a new basketball court, new streets, we got sidewalks, we got speed bumps, because individuals try to race through that area. And then we also got new facilities for our kids' playground. I caught enough hell for that. I don't want to say that one. But Mr. Speaker, things that we must do moving forward so that the residents will hear me. We made a commitment to complete the park in Southwest Ridge. And as soon as their park and the land is properly conveyed, then we complete the park. Their park is on lake, and therefore we'd also construct some form of ramp so that the kids can use their little boats, whatever they use, play with, on the lake. Then we have to do a similar park in West Ridge. And of course, the seawall near Nesbitt must be done, because that can be a complete disaster to the West Bay Street corridor. And the park near Nesbitt is in great disrepair. Our basketball facility has deteriorated quite a bit. And therefore, that would be the next park we would be embarking on to complete. And then, at some point, hopefully this year, we would complete the Twin Lake subdivision. I'm advised by the minister that yes, we're in line to have the Twin Lake subdivision roads repaired or fixed for the first time, and the water lines would also be installed. So yes, we will lay, remember for Long Island, we will lay the proper pipes within my constituency. But Mr. Speaker, before I start my contribution, allow me to thank all of my colleagues whom I thought did an excellent presentation. They had done a great presentation and a report to the nation of their respective portfolios, where they were yesterday, where they are today, and where they're taking them tomorrow and beyond. So, Mr. Speaker, let me say that I rise on behalf of the wonderful people of Kalani to offer my contribution to this debate on the 2019-2020 national budget. And it's also, Mr. Speaker, my great privilege as head of government to contribute to the debate on a new and better direction for our Bahamas. In the place of corruption, special interest-based mismanagement, and disastrous governance of the last government, the Free National Movement is investing in jobs, education and training, home ownership, and access to land in our Bahamas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's distressing to me. It's more painful to me as I visit the Family Islands and move about through New Providence. It is more painful than the night I was dismissed as leader of the Governor General, leader of the opposition. It's more painful when I see so many young people trying to buy land in this country, their country, and they cannot afford it. Yet, individuals of different stature has 2,000, 3,000 acres, and you want to ask the question, how the hell they got it? I won't call any names, but they know who they are. But what I would say is that we come in to take the land back. That you had your time to talk.
Honorable members. Honorable members.
We want justice in the Bahamas.
Popcorn duck.
Honorable members.
Mr. Speaker,
We want to see justice. How far back is going?
Open your eyes and listen.
Mr. Speaker, I was not here. I was not here for the presentation by the member for Golden Isles. But I said to the member for Golden Isles that I would miss this debate, but I would listen. I had some matters I had to deal with which were of utmost importance. But I was moved by aspects of the member for Golden Isles. Because the land is one of the natural resources of the Bahamian people. Mr. Speaker.
Yes. We want to know how far back we go. How far back as we need to. We want to. We want that.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker.
We don't have to go too far. We don't have to go too far.
I am attempted.
Exactly. We don't have to go too far.
I am attempted to respond. But I was told and advised to be myself but have limitations. So I will limit myself today.
Look at the white paper. You shared that breakfast.
But throughout the day, I will see whether I get a text or WhatsApp that say you are free. And if I receive And oh my God. Anyhow, Mr. Speaker,
Go for it.
we are investing in the Family Islands. We are investing in crime fighting, social assistance, young people, roads, airports, over the hill development, Bahamian entrepreneurs, and small business people. From young environmental monitors over the hill who are being employed to help rebuild their communities, to Spring City, Abaco, where young people in their 20s have received conveyances and deeds for new homes. To preschool students in poorer neighborhoods. This government, Speaker, this government is building a better, brighter Bahamas for all Bahamians. We are building a more just society in which the needs and the aspirations of the poor and the disadvantaged are a priority instead of the grabalicious wheeling dealing of the PLP. Mr. Speaker, I wish to remind the House, no, don't put up the flag of truce yet.
I said you don't wipe your mouth like your tongue. For grabalicious.
Yeah, no, I got my candy. I got my candy. I wish to remind the House, Mr. Speaker, that it is the FNM that introduced minimum wage in order to help lift more Bahamians out of poverty. We introduced the minimum wage to help boost the incomes and better the lives of all working class Bahamians. And Mr. Speaker, I leave that as that. But sadly and shamefully, over the course of 25 years, a full quarter century, the PLP failed to introduce minimum wage, even though certain PLPs were enriching themselves. The party that claimed to care about the poor and working class failed the poor and working class, Mr. Speaker. My Lord. And today, the FNM is investing heavily in education to help break the cycle of poverty. Yes. We know, Mr. Speaker, that while talent is equally distributed in a country, opportunity is not as equally distributed or available. Opportunity must be equally distributed and available. So our mission, Mr. Speaker, my mission is to provide greater opportunity for all, especially the more disadvantaged in our society. I am especially pleased that this government is investing in access to free education from preschool to university. And Mr. Speaker, this will be one of the greatest investments in education in Bahamian history. Wow. We are investing more in preschool education and university education than the previous PLP government. And when we say that we believe in Bahamians, this is not simply a campaign slogan that we tuck away until the next election. We truly believe in Bahamians. And our policies, Mr. Speaker, would demonstrate such. We believe in young Bahamians much more than the PLP. Mr. Speaker, a few weeks ago, we launched a branch of the Small Business Development Center as a part of our Over the Hill initiative. As a result of $100,000 in private sector donations, we will provide grants to help develop micro and small businesses over the hill. I emphasize, Mr. Speaker, that these will be grants. Let me speak clearly to some of my people. When I say grants, I'm not talking about Ruby Grant. I'm not talking about George Grant. I'm not talking about Harry Grant. I'm talking about money grant. When I give it to you, you don't have to pay back. It's yours. Not alone. Our only request of such individuals who receive grants is that they succeed. That's our only request. And that they do well. Mr. Speaker, there were originally 25 participants in the first group of classes that started on May 14th. And the classes ended on July 14th. The classes are being held at the Edmund Moxley Community Center. 18 participants remain in the class, and participants have completed the formal curriculum. They are completing their business plans over the next 2 weeks. And the business areas of these participants include, because this is important, so that you know who got these grants and which businesses had received such grants. A bee product producer, a nail technician, beauticians, landscapers, craftsmen, a farmer, a pharmaceutical soap distributor, and an errand service provider. And upon completion of this class, we anticipate awarding each participant $2,500 in grant for a total of $45,000. And some of these participants, Mr. Speaker, will go on to the broader Small Business Development Center program for additional funding needs. So 45,000 out of the 100 has been issued to these particular participants. There's an additional 55,000 still left. And there are members of the private sector who has money in waiting, who would give such money to our foundation so that more people in the Over the Hill community can receive further grants to help to elevate our people. So, Mr. Speaker, I am sending out a message to the barbers in the area requesting Perry, the barber whom I go to, he and Military, please go and collect your $2,500. Mr. Speaker, this is what empowerment looks and feels like. This is what opportunity looks like. We are lifting all boats. And Mr. Speaker, when we were elected to office by the Bahamian people 2 years ago, our country was at the doorsteps of intensive care. Now, I know you're going to twist that later, but, and you all would have help. And I know who your help can be, all right? but I have the help in here too. The Bahamas was getting sicker and sicker by the day, Mr. Speaker, after 5 wasted years of mass and widespread corruption by the very same party that was in power during the vicious and vulgar drug era that destroyed many lives and ruined many families.
Oh, you
We
got
are
it
still-
in the past. Don't worry, you can't duck it.
We are still recovering from the crack epidemic and drug era of the 70s and
your chance.
80s.
You had your
Mr.
chance.
Speaker,
You had your chance.
the opposition party has governed the Bahamas
Putting out
for 35 years.
indicative foolishness on the social
And each, for 35 years, and each of their administration ended in bitter disappointment for the Bahamian people. The highs of the achievement, the highs of the achievement of majority rule and independence sadly gave way under them to the lows of the drug era,
venomous
which
comment.
laid the foundation for the crime problems and many of the social problems that we see in our society today. The current opposition, Mr. Speaker, if you listen, the current opposition hates when I talk about this.
Try it, baby, try it.
They always say it's the past. But it is not. It is a part of your record.
Yes.
The leader they idolized and followed then caused the immense challenges we face now with crime and the inner city dysfunction. As a medical doctor, Mr. Speaker, as a medical doctor, I was trained first and foremost to save lives. Sadly, some people have used their professional training to represent those who deal in dark and corrupt trades. Under the wasted Christie Davis years, scandals were exploding like landmines. The plunder and raid on the public treasury was killing our Bahamas.
You don't know the past.
The country was losing jobs,
The past, don't get it.
hand over fist. We were constantly being downgraded. Our economy,
No.
I didn't call any names.
Honorable member, the chair recognizes honorable member for Cat Island, Rumpke, and San Salvador on a point of order.
The member said that the country was losing jobs during what he termed the Christie Davis administration. Right? The record would show that during that 5-year period, under what he called the Christie Davis administration, that job creation was 39,000 for that period, the most ever in any period before that time. 39,000 over that period. The stats shows it. I don't say it, the Department of Statistics says it. I asked them to withdraw that statement. Otherwise, produce the Department of Statistics. They do their assessment, produce their numbers and statistics on the jobs created or the jobs lost during that period.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to repeat, first and foremost, you hired tons of people just before election, 3 months, etc. Okay? So I wouldn't even go there.
Honorable member.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
They make statements, unless, as you have indicated to us, and in this House, that if it's established, once I object to it, I'll expect them to substantiate it. Mr. Speaker, as I said, we have a Department of Statistics. They do all the surveys. They are able to determine truth or fact. Truth matters. The question is, he's saying that during the period that he calls the Davis-Christie administration, Christie Davis administration, we lost jobs. I invite him to establish that. I say and I assert that during that period, over 39,000 jobs were created.
You finished? Mr. Speaker, I love to listen to the leader of opposition. Let me repeat so the leader of opposition will understand. The leader of opposition said they created jobs. I said the country is losing jobs. Nobody lost their job.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumpy, and St. Salvador.
I invite him to demonstrate that jobs were lost as a result of penny
Mr. Speaker,
handling of the
I
economy.
rest my
But
case.
he's the one who said it. I'm saying losing jobs. I'm saying we created jobs.
Okay, so you said, so Mr. Speaker, I'm no lawyer. I'm no lawyer. I'm no QC. I don't know what QC means. All right? Let me fix my pants. QC. MD. Which one? Yeah. All right, anyhow. You said, Mr. Speaker, you're a lawyer. He said they created jobs. I said country lost jobs. Nobody lost a job?
Yeah.
Just say yes or no. I don't want all the pondering.
Honorable members,
I never said statistically. I did not say statistics.
When we came into office, the job rate was
People lost their jobs. Under 10%?
That's creating jobs and bringing down the I rely on those.
He didn't say.
Anyhow,
He said no jobs were lost. No jobs were lost.
No jobs?
were lost.
anyhow,
honorable members,
Speaker, allow me to carry on.
I believe we
Yes.
reached
Yeah.
an impasse on technicalities as it relates to what is being said.
Anyhow, Mr. Speaker, our economy was sinking, shrinking, and headed over the cliff. You want me to give the statistics there too?
They lost jobs.
Anyhow, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy this and send it to you. Or you want me to just WhatsApp it to you now? WhatsApp it to him.
Yeah, that's up.
Speaker, shoot. Yeah. Okay. Now, anyhow, I'll wait and see if I'll wait. Yeah, I said our economy was sinking, shrinking, and headed over the cliff. Now, I didn't give the statistics yet. I can wait until afterward. Let me finish, man. Let me finish.
Honorable member for Cat Island, are you on the point of order?
I mentioned this morning.
Honorable member for Kalani? Honorable member for Kalani, the member for Cat Island is on a point of order.
Speaker, I said it's incorrect to say that the economy in 2017 was sinking or shrinking or going over a cliff, because I refer him now to page 29 to page 33 of the Minister of Finance's communication that he gave on May, the last Wednesday of May in 2017, when he laid what he had to say about it. All the vital, he's MD, all the vital signs that determine whether an economy is healthy, he spoke to it. I reminded them of that in my commentary. So I refer him to that.
Mr. Speaker,
0% growth.
I mentioned this morning. I mentioned this morning that I had popcorn for breakfast for a reason. And now it's not purple crack. You're jumping up and down all day. But, Mr. Speaker, first of all, I said our economy. I never said any date. But I could give you Department of Statistics numbers, and all I would say is average growth over 5 years. Average growth over 5 years was minus 0.2%. But so I won't get into all the details. But there's a distinct difference. There's a distinct difference between a doctor and a lawyer. We are ticklers for details. We can't make mistakes because they will die. You don't want to solve problems because you create problems so you can have more money. You have more
Speaker, Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Cat Island, Rumkey and St. Salvador on a point of order.
Obviously, the medical doctor don't truly appreciate the work of an attorney as you would, and you ought not to demean our work in such a way he did. But suffice it to say, I will stay away from the broadsides and the personal issue, but I'll go back to what he said about the group. Mr. Speaker, that's what makes us different from the other side. They measure their success by the metrics. We measured the Bahamian people were happy, their lives are being improved, and they've lived.
Honourable members, as we proceed, we want you to be mindful of Rule 33 with respect to imputations of improper motives and with respect to particularly language, abusive language, and language that is not unparliamentary, not becoming of honorable men as we proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, this is going to be a long day. Guess what? Yeah. I don't take off my shoes, you know. Slept well. I relax, man. I'm relaxed.
Only if you make it along.
This week on our watch, the economy is finally growing again, and the endless downgrades have ended. We now have the lowest annual deficit in 10 years. As the country turns the page on the reckless spending and financial wasteland, and that was a hallmark of the past government. As of May 2019, approximately $8 billion in international investment have been approved. And this includes, Mr. Speaker, $100 million Carnival Cruise port on Grand Bahama. That what's up is fake. What's up? That's fake. Don't worry about that. And new developments throughout our island chain. We are in negotiations for a mega project that will transform Freeport, including the Grand Lucayan properties, into one of the premier destinations in our region. And the Bahamas, Mr. Speaker, has had 2 straight years of positive growth after suffering through 5 years of net zero growth during the non-productive, disastrous Christie Davis years. On their watch, crime and murder were spiraling out of control. And today, because of our crime strategy, crime is finally coming down. But there's still much more work to do, Mr. Speaker, to make our people safer. During the last administration, Grand Bahama had largely been abandoned. The PLP couldn't even finish the seawall at Smith's Point, Grand Bahama, which we have completed in advance of the hurricane season. And I understand it's one of the best seawalls one can see. The PLP's neglect has no limit. The Family Island were also suffering from neglect, including, you want to hear this one, including Cat Island. And San Salvador.
Not 1 inch of pipe.
I am pleased, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased that in 2018, under the FNM, a new primary school was completed in San Salvador. Listen to the language. Listen to the language. Because I know the last time you were a puppet. We will also provide.
You didn't complete it. You didn't complete it.
We will also provide more crown land for the residents of San Salvador to build new homes.
You didn't.
How sad that San Salvador, which was represented in the House of Assembly by the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Works, who had to wait for an FNM government to complete its primary school. How shameful, how disgraceful, but not surprising. What does this neglect tell us about his commitment to education?
Honorable members, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkins, and Salvador.
I'm
On a point of
also
order.
being neglectful to my constituency, but my constituents know, and they were there. The reason why the work was completed and just opened recently is because of their delay to open it and the refusal to pay the contractor on time. It would have been completed, but for their delay. Speaker, I am proud of what I've done for my constituents. They know what I've done. Now, however they may claim, I don't mind you.
Honorable member.
Embrace the claim of completing it.
Honorable members, just so we can have the proper order and decorum, let me just read Rule 38 so that we would proceed accordingly. Point of order on rulings. 38.1. A member who raises on a point of order shall, when invited by the Speaker or Chairman to do so, state the infringement of these rules on which the point of order is based, and then resume his seat. 2. When a point of order has been raised, any member who is then speaking shall resume his seat, and after the point of order has been stated, the Speaker or Chairman shall rule as soon as may be. 3. A member shall not dissent from the ruling of the Speaker or the Chairman except by substantive motion for that purpose. So, honorable members, as we stand on points of order, state the infringement of the rule and resume your seat. And then the chair will make a decision from which there should be no dissent except by substantive motion. Thank you. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am becoming so relaxed. Look like I won't be ready for a break until about 4 o'clock. Mr. Speaker, PLP leaders have a long, sad, and well-known history of neglecting their constituencies. For decades, under the Lyndon, Pinling, Kemps Bay, and South Andres, were shamefully neglected and abandoned. Much of this seems to have been done on purpose in order to keep voters utterly dependent on the PLP. Perry Christie became the first sitting prime minister to lose his seat because of his shameful neglect of Centerville. During a previous Hubert Ingram government, MPs were granted $50,000 a year for projects in their constituencies. for at least 2 years, and perhaps more. Perry Christie did not use these funds to improve the lives of the people of his constituency, an area of New Providence in which some of the poorer Bahamians live. This is shameful, and this is disgraceful. Just like Pending and Christie, the current leader of the PLP. You can look up now. Current leader of the PLP has failed to significantly improve the lives. Now, I use the word significantly now. That's a wide word, so don't jump up. Oh, sorry, I don't point. I accept. The Speaker, I apologize. Have failed to significantly, that's an important word, improve the lives of people in his constituency. The PLP and its entitled and privileged leaders like to use poor people to win votes. But once in office, they abandon the poor and the disadvantaged. The FNM, Mr. Speaker, we are different. We are absolutely different. Because of our former leader, Hubert Ingram, Abaco has been transformed.
Break down the morgue and get out.
And for my part, it is my mission to improve the lives of all poor Bahamians,
Yes.
including the less fortunate who live in Kalani and throughout New Providence. And since I mentioned the name Kalani, let me inform Kalani residents that I've been informed by my colleague minister that the contract for the repair of roads in Twin Lakes Constituency, roads and water, has been signed. Mr. Speaker, during the Christie Davis years, millions upon millions of untended contracts were being handed out like candy on tables of Halloween. On the member of Keller Island's watch, talking about you now, on the member of Keller Island's watch, as Minister of Works, approximately $200 million in untendered contracts were awarded for contracts worth over $3.5 million. The purpose, Mr. Speaker, the purpose for tendering contracts include accountability, fairness, and getting the best value for money. But under the PLP and the former Minister of Works, untendered contracts were given out left, right, center, up, down. I don't know. You were just giving them out.
I want popcorn for breakfast tomorrow.
Mr. Speaker,
What kind of popcorn is that? I need some of that.
it was raining untendered contracts under the PLP. Mr. Speaker, today accountability has replaced deals that hurt the people but benefited the chosen few and special interests. And now, every tax dollar is accounted for, unlike the hundreds of millions of dollars our predecessors budgeted over the years. During the Christie Davis government, fuzzy and funny things were happening at places like the National Sports Authority.
The chair recognizes the member for Angleston on a point of order.
Yes, the point of order, Mr. Speaker, is that the member is misleading the Parliament, or he's asserting that millions, hundreds of millions of tax dollars went unaccounted for. I refute that, and I'm asking the member to support his assertion, Mr. Speaker. He said hundreds of millions of dollars in tax dollars were unaccounted for, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, I just point out when contracts are untendered, the whole tendering process is accountability. You agree? I could table, we could, it's more than that now.
Honorable member.
Give me document. I can table it at the end.
Unaccounted for.
That's what he said. And we want to establish that.
That's a good one.
Anyhow, Mr. Speaker,
One bit.
tendering is a transparent process. If it's not tender, it's not transparent.
One bit. 200 million.
Like the National Sports Authority.
Yes, all of it. 200.
All right, let me say this again. So let me see if you want to jump up again. Let me say it again. During the Christie Davis government, fuzzy and funny things were happening at places like the, what is it?
Smudgy.
Man, listen, they understand what I'm talking about. They understand. You all say smudgy, budgy, whatever. I say fuzzy.
In the words of challenge.
Yeah. Were happening at places like the National Sports Authority, which the leader of the opposition is refusing to look into as head of the Public Accounts Committee. I'll sit if you want to say, no, you can do it. If you're not, I'll proceed. The PLP inflicted great trauma and damage on our country. We are still trying to account, I've been advised, we are still trying to account for millions that went missing. I've been advised. Some people turned a blind eye to oil from a gas station leaking in the ground, threatening the health and well-being of Bahamians. The Bahamian people has had enough. The people wanted to desperately get rid of the entitled all for me baby party. So, what did they do? They hired a medical doctor and his team to make our country better and healthier. And this is what we are doing, Mr. Speaker. We now have a much healthier growing economy, but we need to grow it even more in order to lift up more Bahamians and to tackle the cost of living. More people need work and jobs. More people need money in their pockets. More people need to feel the recovery. The Speaker, I've said repeatedly, it makes no sense to many of my people when you talk about the GDP growth of 2%, GDP growth of 5%, that don't mean hogwash. They want to know how much money going in their pocket so that they can pay their light bill, their water bill, and we will concentrate over the next few years on their pockets. Yeah. We won't keep the money in our pockets now. We'll ensure it goes in their pockets. Yes. But I will continue to remind the Bahamian people where we came from, because the now opposition that plunged our country into despair, sickness, and poor health want to get their hands back, let me say greedy hands back on the people's money. They have not changed. They cannot change. They will not change. As a medical doctor for over 30 years, I know that when individuals experience great trauma, the first thing that needs to be done is stabilization. They need to be stabilized. And in 2 quick years, we have stabilized the Bahamas.
recognize the Honorable Member Franklin on a point of order.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. You referred to the rule earlier about members of this House casting negative motives and aspersions or insults to the other side. The member for Kalani talked about greedy, and I want to know who he's talking about. Now, I want to know, Speaker, I want to know if the member's talking about Angliston, because if he is, I need a response, Speaker. So I'm relying on the rule you have referred to, Mr. Speaker, and I'm asking the member to clarify who he's talking about. He's talking about Cat Island, Exuma, South Anglis, or Angliston, when he uses that derogatory, demeaning language about greedy. And in fact, the main people are wondering who's really greedy in this Parliament, Speaker. So, Speaker, I'm asking the member to withdraw his unparliamentary language in this Parliament, unless he says he's not speaking about anyone sitting in this House, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first of all, Mr. Speaker, I never called any name, but you know, my mother's always said to me, say, son, when you throw a rock, whoever screams, that's the one that hit.
The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Angliston.
Speaker, you now heard that the member is casting aspersion at Angliston in the language of greedy. And Speaker, this is coming from a member who is assured that the top 2% in this country get all the benefit in this country. So the poor people. Speaker, I am asking this member, I'm asking him to withdraw, and I'm asking that his comments that insinuate that he's speaking to me be struck from the record, Mr. Speaker. I'm asking that you protect Angliston in his language where he is asserting that this member is greedy in public life, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. First and foremost, I said nothing about the member. I would never call you. I said nothing about the member. But just, again.
Honorable Member, do I need to read the rule for you again?
To me all the time. Can you read something?
I'm reading. Honorable Member. Honorable Member. Honorable Member.
If you do not agree, then that's like the Speaker.
Honorable Member.
You don't agree, no problem.
Have a seat. Resume your seat.
I want to see how you deal with this.
I'm going to show you how I'm going to deal with it. A member who raises on a point of order shall, when invited by the Speaker or the Chairman to do so, state the infringement of the rules. When a point of order is raised by a member, the Speaker will make a determination whether the point of order is well taken or not. And the Speaker would then make a ruling. The simple point I'm trying to make to you, Honorable Member Franklin, is that the Speaker cannot make a ruling if you don't give the Speaker the opportunity to make a ruling. You're supposed to state the point of order and resume your seat according to the rules. Not carry on a discussion with the Speaker or with any other member. Honorable Member. And so, the rule to which you are referring is Rule 33, 16, 17, or 18. With respect to abusive language, offensive language, or insulting words. And you are suggesting that the word greedy is either offensive, abusive, insulting, or insulting.
Greedy in public life.
And so, the ruling of the chair is simply that, according to the rules, the insulting word should be directly, specifically at a member. And in this instance, the word was used in a general way, not specifically at any member or any group. And that is the ruling of the chair, that the point was not well taken. That is the ruling of the chair. Honorable member.
Just recognize.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Rumkey
Speaker,
and San Salvador.
hearing your ruling about the point of order first made, I accept that. But the member went on to identify the member by saying, by using the metaphor, that if I throw a rock in a packet of those who jump up, that's identifiable of the member. And for that reason, the words ought to be struck.
Mr. Speaker, recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
Thank you. I would never, you know I love you, darling.
No, don't love you, darling.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the Bahamian people called on the FNM to rescue the country from the disastrous 5 years of the Christie Davis government. In the last 2 years, we have improved revenue across the board. These are funds that can now be invested in young entrepreneurs, preschool students, family island airports, poverty reduction, and over the hill. We have eliminated the reckless policies of the Christie Davis regime that led to an unending cycle of debt and a very uncertain future for every Bahamian. Mr. Speaker, as a medical doctor, I know all too well that nobody likes pills, injections. I myself scared of needles, or the taste of medicine. A grave matter, or the taste of medicine. But sometimes we need to take medicine in order to get better and healthier. The Free National Movement had to take some strong measures, like the Fiscal Responsibility Act, to make the Bahamas better after 5 years of unhealthy and reckless practices by the PLP. Disgracefully, PLP left hundreds of millions of unpaid bills that were owed to many, many small people. A grave matter that seems to have slipped the full attention of the member for Exuma. Much of these funds were owed to many small business people. This was money people needed to pay for things like health care, funeral expenses, mortgages, business supplies and inventory, salaries for employees, school fees and other living and business expenses. And we are paying down these large bills left by the Christie Davis administration. The older we get, we have to be more disciplined. We have to watch what we eat and exercise, especially if somebody is struggling with high blood pressure and diabetes. Just like there can be heart and kidney failure, poor habits in government can lead to the failure of the vital organs of government. When people steal money in government, there's less money for hospitals, for schools, for social assistance, for helping the poor and the vulnerable. Mr. Speaker, we still have much work to do, but our Bahamas is much healthier than it was 2 years ago. And over the next several years, things will definitely get better. There will be many more jobs and opportunities for Bahamians because of the $8 million of new investments across the Bahamas. And there's more to come, including $8 billion, including more Bahamian ownership and investments in areas ranging from agriculture to the creative economy, to financial technology and new technologies like blockchain. Mr. Speaker, to help boost Bahamian ownership in the tourism sector and to significantly boost spending by Bahamians and cruise ship passengers, we are proposing, now I want you to listen very carefully now, I want everybody to listen very carefully. We are proposing the redevelopment of the area from Fish Fry to Junkanoo Beach, Long Walk. This new entertainment area for Nassau will result in scores of Bahamians going to the waterfront for entertainment and relaxation on weekly basis. I ain't finished yet. We will enhance and beautify the area for Junkanoo practices, so the Saxons will still have their place. Cookouts, so grandma and aunt can still have their cookouts. Festivals and other events, like Saunders Beach and Montague Beach. We will enhance the beaches and swimming areas for Bahamians and visitors alike. Yes. The House will recall that it is the F&M that first developed Fish Fry, which has been extremely successful. Mr. Speaker, I have listened to the Minister of Tourism very attentively. And the Minister pointed out that soon there'd be approximately 20,000 cruise visitors. 20,000 cruise visitors are projected to visit our shores daily. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we must find ways to attract our cruise visitors to Junkanoo Beach, Fish Fry, our forts, Clifford Park, and adjoining areas. Fort, adjoining area, yes, stay in town, West Bay Street, in a safe manner, Mr. Speaker. So they must be able to visit those areas, inclusive of Fort, meaning that you must cross Bay Street, but we must find a way for them to do that in a very safe manner. We must find a way, Mr. Speaker, for at least a minimum of 2,000 visitors to visit these areas daily. We must plan for a better future and move away from poor planning and poorly erected shacks that we see popping up here, there, and everywhere. We must plan. So, Mr. Speaker, to show what this government is all about, I will explain this. A and B. Let the camera get this. It's A. The speaker. This is A. That's B. Let's put that there. I'll explain that in a little while. We now propose to expand the development of these areas into a major retail and entertainment center. Yes. There will be enhanced security and measures to ensure the proper and ongoing maintenance of this development, of this developed area. This area will have Wi-Fi free facilities. And Mr. Speaker, that is essential. That is essential. Because I've been advised by the cruise ship that we concentrate more on cruise visitors. But a very important component of the cruise ship we ignore. And that's the staff. The staff. So you can have 5,000 odd staff members here per day. The staff are looking for things to do. They want to come off. They are attracted to Wi-Fi free areas so that they could call their families and friends and let them know where they are. They want opportunities to hang out. They want opportunities to spend their money. So all of these facilities we are proposing. We will also use smart technology to ensure the safety and security of Bahamians and visitors. These areas, Mr. Speaker, will be transformed into a major retail, restaurant, and entertainment and cultural area. In which businesses, understand, businesses are owned strictly by Bahamians. So, Mr. Speaker, regular Bahamians.
What's a regular Bahamian?
The area,
Regular Bahamian.
Mr. Speaker, in such areas,
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker,
Oh,
in such
the
areas,
top 2%. Stand up on
Bahamians,
your feet and say it. Have the nerve to stand up on your feet. Have the cojones to stand up on your feet.
in such areas, Mr. Speaker, in such areas, Mr. Speaker, in small ones, Bahamians would be able to establish their stores to sell their jewelry,
Oh, yeah.
Bahamian jewelry. Mr. Speaker, you would notice that I'm always wearing a band. This is a Bahamian-made jewelry, the colors of the flag. This was made by a young lady, Sunita Duncan, whom I call Foxy, my trainer. And every time I travel, my colleague leaders always ask about these and fall in love. And every time I travel, I invariably take off the one I have and give to a leader who subsequently takes it. So what I do now, I travel with several. But these are Bahamian made, the colors of the flag. And these are things that we want to encourage. And this young lady, Sunita Duncan, has done very well. And individuals like her would need places to sell their goods. We provide opportunity for them. Also inclusive of such facilities, we can have Jankunu shop, e-shop, and you can also have facilities that would sell Bahamian seasonal drinks. It's mango season, you get mango. It's pineapple, you get pineapple. Pineapple, juju. You know about juju? Remember juju, eh? Hog plum, scarlet plum, sugar apple, all right, tamarind. Oh, Jesus, I had some tamarind from Long Island, but they're the sweetest things I ever had. And Mr. Speaker, this area will be zoned for major tax concessions for Bahamians.
Yes.
It will be declared a tax-free zone like the inner city. We are still in the planning stages, and we'll hold stakeholder meetings with various groups, including taxi drivers. What we are proposing will mean many millions more dollars for Bahamian business people. We will improve their revenue. We will empower existing Bahamians and more. And again, I emphasize, it's still in the planning stage. I note, Mr. Speaker, that there are plans in the works to transform Clifford Park into a central park in New Providence. So, I'm concerned about our guests moving along Bay Street and crossing Clifford Park. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, to connect Clifford Park to the redeveloped waterfront area, we are proposing a sky bridge.
Oh, yeah. Up sky too. They go over there to get the sky.
So, Mr. Speaker, you would see that this is option A, the sky bridge. And this is option B, similar sky bridge. Now, the difference here, Mr. Speaker, the difference here, we would all know where the cannons are located on West Bay. So if you use the cannons as a marker, the cannons will not be disturbed. Those are the cannons. A will have a water fountain. B, more open space without a water fountain. And this is the Sky Bridge walking from Bay Street into the Fort. So if you want to go to the inner city, you go to the inner city. Mr. Speaker, you know, I went to my barber yesterday. You know, I had to get beautified, you know. You know, the other day, one of the reporters, I told you, hey, boy, them popcorn really working. One reporter said to me, she said, you don't smile, you so stiff. I say, listen, it's just natural ugliness. What you want me to do for that? I can't do nothing but that, Speaker. I can't do nothing. You know, they've been my mouth for that. I can't do nothing but that. I as ugly as him, though. We both in the same boat, but I ain't that bad. But, Mr. Speaker, this is the Sky Bridge, so that individuals would not be exposed to the vehicular traffic crossing Bay Street. This is the water fountain, and B, which showed absence of water fountain. So you have more open space. So just decisions, A or B. The Sky Bridge, Mr. Speaker, will help with safety for pedestrians and will provide a beautiful view of Nassau Harbor. I was going back, the Sky Bridge, individuals are asked about individuals crossing the Sky Bridge and going into inner city, etc. But Mr. Speaker, I was at the barber yesterday, and it was amazing. It was amazing. My barber on Gibbs Corner and East Street, there were about 12 tourists moving with their suitcases to an Airbnb facility there, near my barber place. Yep. I mean, they come in Baytown. The last time I saw that was when I was a little boy down at Drumbeat. That's when they used to walk from the dock into the inner city, Drumbeat, and they enjoyed themselves. New town developed around Drumbeat. That's Fleming Street and Market Street, right there. Yeah, you know, the Capitol Theater used to be there. You know all that. You know, no, the Capitol Theater was across the street where the gas station is. Huh? Paul Mayer's Theater, sorry, Paul Mayer's. Capitol was further down. Yeah, Capitol was, you know a little there. Right, Paul Mayer's. It's Paul Mayer's Theater. But Mr. Speaker, it was amazing. It was amazing to see at least 12 tourists moving to some Airbnb facility within the inner city. So, Travis, boy, I don't know what you're doing, but it's working.
If you trickle down, will work. That's all this time in tourism, man. That helps you.
Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, you coming back, though.
Prodigal son.
Be back. Welcome.
Mr. Speaker, our aim is to continue to beautify and enhance downtown Nassau. Downtown needs to be more exciting for Bahamians and visitors. We are also considering the best means possible for the ongoing maintenance of the city of Nassau, which would make the city attractive and more exciting. We must have a dedicated entity or public-private mechanism to ensure that downtown is better maintained. Such an entity, Mr. Speaker, must work in tandem with the Downtown Nassau Partnership. This must be and is a priority. Further, I know you're gonna like this, Anglican. I know you're gonna like this. Further, because you have an appreciation for all these things when we helping our own. I would never call you greedy. I know you're not. I would never do that. Further, to help drive cruise passenger traffic to the area, we are proposing the possibility of water taxi to a water pier. You can see a water pier. And Mr. Speaker, we intend to enter discussions with the taxi union executives and taxi and tour drivers to become owners of these water taxis. This has the potential to boost income for many taxi drivers, with many more cruise passengers coming off the ship. Now we know, yes, and let me tell you how I'm going to deal with that, Anderson. I know sometimes people may be difficult to deal with, but the government will fund travel for union executives, taxi union executives, to visit areas like St. Thomas and or St. Martin to see how water taxis work in those destinations. And remember, these facilities will be owned by the taxi. The problem is this, Mr. Speaker. While speaking to the cruise lines, they would inform you that passenger guests would not walk beyond a distance of 2.5 to 3 times the length of the vessel. Such facilities are more than 2.5 to 3, and that's why we won't have such number of visitors. Water taxi will obviously resolve that issue, and individuals will still walk Bay Street, etc. But the water taxis would be owned by the taxi drivers, and that would help to enhance the adjoining areas, fish fries, etc. The idea, Mr. Speaker, is for many millions more to be spent from cruise passengers while in Nassau, because there will be more to do throughout the city of Nassau and New Providence. Speaker, this is a picture of the pier and the water taxi. So that you can see, this is the pier, and you would note that the pilings are interspersed so that you don't interfere with the current, the tidal flow. And this, the water taxis. And this is only A and B. What A shows, Mr. Speaker, is a more conventional type design, and B show a different type design. That's why I like you, boy. And A, Mr. Speaker, so as you can orient yourself properly, these are the existing cannon, and this the fountain, the open space. And B, the existing cannon without the fountain. So the existing cannon that exists now, so as you'd orient yourself, the existing cannon, without the fountain, more open space, and B, the existing cannon with the fountain and less greenery. But Mr. Speaker, it's essential for us to understand that we will not interfere with the cookouts. You orient yourself where the existing cannons are, and we will not interfere with the Junkanoo practices, and individuals would be able to travel easily to areas like Fish Fry. Now, I want to send a notice out to the members of the Fish Fry. I mentioned that the area would be declared tax-free zone. Members of the Fish Fry would not be able to take advantage of the tax-free incentives until they pay their rent. Bring it current. Mr. Speaker, we are also moving on many other fronts to create opportunity and to boost economic growth. Since June 2017, the National Training Agency has trained 1,640 vulnerable young Bahamians in basic life skills and technical skills. I wish to emphasize that the agency's core focus is on youth between the ages of 16 and 30 who are unemployed and unprepared for the workforce. These, for the most part, are individuals from the inner city communities. Mr. Speaker, we have had great success at the National Training Agency, 55% job placement rate. We are projecting to increase this to 70%. We are working closely with Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines and has already placed 200 young Bahamians in full-time job positions. And last year, 460 young people were assisted with full-time jobs. Out of 278 at-risk youth trained, 125 are already placed in full-time jobs. We are experiencing a 95% success rate in certification training in the area of soft skills. We're experiencing a 91% success rate in certification in the area of technical skills. And since 2017, the agency has increased revenue and reduced dependency on government by 33%, and we will continue working to reduce this even further. Such programs, Mr. Speaker, offer new hope to young people and redirect some from a possible life of crime. A long neglected and abandoned Grand Bahama is being restored to new life and to new life abundantly. We are improving the ease of doing business for Bahamians and international investors. To help small business people, there will be greater flexibility in business license deadlines. The new cruise port downtown Nassau will mean more money for hair braiders, straw vendors, taxi drivers, and tour operators, for small businesses and for retail stores. So, Mr. Speaker, I would have discussed this plan moving forward at great length with the Minister of Tourism. I wanted to ensure that there would be no concern with the new port. And he has assured me that there would be no concern, different elements altogether. A number of Bahamian retailers are already moving or planning to move back downtown Nassau because of the growing numbers of cruise ship passengers. I wish to remind the House that it was a previous FNM government that dredged Nassau Harbor so that the world's largest cruise ship could visit Nassau. And let me remind those who suffer from amnesia in the PLP that the late again and mostly do-nothing PLP could not get around to dredging the harbor. We were severely criticized by the PLP, just like they are criticizing us right now for many of the good things that we are doing. If we did not dredge the harbor back then, scores of small Bahamian business people would have suffered. This FNM government is negotiating what will be one of the best cruise ports in the region and the best cruise port ever built downtown Nassau. We are boosting Bahamian ownership and empowerment for small business people. We are expanding the allocation to small business development from 5 million to 8.5 million. We are building 21st century infrastructure as a foundation for economic growth. This includes new Family Island airports in North Eleuthera, Long Island, and Exuma, all of which the PLP failed to build on their watch. We are a decisive government, unlike some of the indecisive former PLP ministers who were constantly scared to make decisions and who have plenty excuses for their poor record and inaction after they leave government. Mr. Speaker, in October 2016, Hurricane Matthew smashed into New Providence, destroying public and private property. The children's ward at Princess Margaret Hospital was severely damaged and had to be closed. Instead of addressing the damage to the children's ward, the PLP went on to spend millions of dollars on Carnival, on Nassau, and Freeport. They allocated, now listen now, because I know you all like to Google. They allocated $12 million to Carnival. However, went on to spend $25,360,944. Apparently, the PLP placed a great priority on partying than they did on sick children. Of course, many of the vendors who benefited from the PLP Carnival were well-connected special interests. If I'm going to explain special interest in a little while. It's essential for me to get to that. If private citizens want to have a carnival, that's their right. But the government, this government, will not be paying for such a carnival. So this government stopped spending the people's money on the PLP Carnival. And Mr. Speaker, I want to send a notice out to the private owners, contractors of the Carnival. We've made a commitment that we will not spend government money. But during the last Carnival, it cost us an average of $9,473.92 to clean up afterward. That will be the private owner's responsibility next time. We will save our money for something else. In my recent national report, Mr. Speaker, I outlined what we are going to do to restore Ragged Island after Hurricane Irma. We have provided $2.4 million to BPL for the construction of a fully contained solar power generating plant for Ragged Island. Work on this will commence in coming months. We are also in negotiations with an entity to restore and to reopen the children's ward at PMH. And perhaps the member for Exuma might reflect on the utter hypocrisy of a party that failed to restore the children's ward after Hurricane Matthew, but continues to have all kinds of talk about Ragged Island. Mr. Speaker, some years ago, before coming to office, the PLP announced that it intended to double the national investment in education and training. They did not keep that promise. Instead, they cut the scholarship budget. But the FNM, Mr. Speaker, is distinctly different. We promised the young Bahamians would have access to quality higher education through scholarships and grants. We have kept our commitment and our pledge. For our government tertiary grant initiative at the University of Bahamas, this year's budget includes 16.2 million, and this covers both new and returning qualifying students. In addition, Mr. Speaker, a $500 monthly stipend will be provided to all Family Island students to assist with their accommodation. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm just going to send out an idea to the University of Bahamas. I know they're listening. The students coming from the Family Island would be given $500 by the government. I would like to see the university have a proper housing register, so that Bahamians with home facility can register, have their homes inspected to ensure they meet all the standards, quality, safety, etc. There are many homes around the university area. There are homes in the east, there are homes in the west, where there may be one or two individuals. And these parents in such homes or owners of such facilities would be more than happy to accommodate students coming from the Family Island, knowing that they would automatically receive $500 from the government. Every month, $500 per month. Which means they can have an inbuilt bed and breakfast facility, and they may require the student to pay an additional $200-300. $500 would come from the government monthly. The student pay $200-300, whatever the cost may be. So you can have bed and breakfast facility. Mr. Speaker, when I was a student in London, I had to move from county to county to work in the various different hospitals. And there were many homes that were registered under the hospital. And we would stay at such facilities, bed and breakfast. So it was easy for us to pay the necessary pound because these facilities were registered. And we stayed in homes with families, bed and breakfast. And we may move every month. But you create a new industry so that many of the homes that have space, that $500 can go a long way, and that money stays within our society. Because at this point in time, University of Bahamas don't have such facilities. So let us invite Bahamians. There are many individuals in the east, west, south, north, wherever. If tourists can go into Bain Town with their luggage and whatever, it's a new industry, Mr. Speaker, and we need to take advantage of it. And it would also encourage what we call people-to-people type principle. Do you agree with that? Yes, sir. So, Mr. Speaker, I know from very personal experience of the importance of education. It was my dream, and my mother's dream as Roman Catholics, that I would go to St. Augustine's College, run by the Benedictine monks. My late mother, Mr. Speaker, was overjoyed when I was accepted to SAC. To pay for high school, I sold The Guardian in the morning. Or I don't know if I'd do that today, the amount of things they say with me. I wouldn't do it today. No, I wouldn't sell that no more. Jesus, Lord, they don't like me. Oh my God. They're like CNN with the other person. The Speaker, my mother was overjoyed when I was accepted to SAC. To pay for high school, I can imagine Guardian headline tomorrow. Minutes pop. I don't know what they'll put. They'll put something. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I'll get it. To pay for high school, Mr. Speaker, I sold The Guardian in the morning and the Tribune in the evening. I also sold Bahamian Times. Myself, Dion Folks, and his brother, we sold Bahamian Times together. And I worked 2 days a week at a tailor shop. That's why I could sew so good, you know. I still could sew. And yeah, I only used to make pants, you know. It was much more economical to make pants.
Worth more money.
It took you an hour and a half to make a pants, and you got $4. It took you 2.5 days to make a coat because you had to do all that padding. And you only made $3. That made no sense to me. So I never learned to make coats. I was a pants man. So I worked 2 days a week in a tailor shop, and I shined shoes on weekends. I enjoyed that. That's how you made all the money. You bought a can of black polish for 25 cents, and you made $20. That made business sense. And I also pumped gas, Mr. Speaker, and patched tires. But even though I worked hard and saved up to assist with my school fees, I didn't always have sufficient money. So sometimes I would be sent home because we could not afford the school fees. But this made me work even harder to graduate from SAC. A member of this chamber recently spoke of their connection to the grassroots. Mr. Speaker, I come from the grassroots. My navel string is buried next to Travis's in Baytown.
Now
I don't need a so-called connection to poor Bahamian, and I do not begrudge anyone their privilege. But I did not grow up with political or economic privilege. I did not come from well-connected families or homes. I had to struggle and to fight for everything I got in life. Just like most Bahamians, Travis knows, the more obstacles I encountered, the more determined I became to succeed and make my family proud. The privilege I had, Mr. Speaker, the privilege I had was a mother and sisters who insisted that I was going to get a good education. And Mr. Speaker, that's why I am so close to my mother. They insisted that I was as capable as anyone else's children. My late mother, Mr. Speaker, instilled in me confidence to believe in myself. So the Guardian, you could carry on. I don't read it. That's like water on a duck's back. In gratitude to the Bahamas and to my family, boy, you know, Guardian, you cost me out tomorrow. But everybody to know. Everybody to know. They did that 5 years, man. Jesus Christ, every Monday and Wednesday and Thursday, look for that. In gratitude to the Bahamas and to my family, I am paying this forward as much as I can for many thousands of young Bahamians. A young Bahamian now benefiting from the Small Business Development Center recently told me, and I quote, "Thank you for believing in me, and thank you for helping me to believe in myself." Mr. Speaker, there are some from well-connected families and people from privileged backgrounds, including some in politics, who look down on those like myself who were less privileged. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed having to go to school sometime bare feet. No, that don't bother me. They believe, Mr. Speaker, that they are smarter than the less privileged. They call them certain names and question their intelligence. The truth is that deep in their hearts, they really believe that they are better than other people. especially those who come from modest background. I remember growing up, Mr. Speaker, how some very privileged people like to call us words like dummy or stupid to describe other people they look down. I've lived that. I mean, the Guardian continues with it. But anyhow, let me get off the Guardian. But I believe, Mr. Speaker, in a different Bahamas. In the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the founders of the Free National Movement, I believe in a country where people should be judged by the content of their character and not by race, gender, circumstances of birth, or economic standing. A child from Angliston, Baintown, St. Barnabas, Grantstown, Gambia, Fox Hill, or Camp Road, inclusive of all family islands, should have the same opportunities as any Bahamian child. I did not take for granted, Mr. Speaker, that I could go to university, unlike some whose parents could easily afford their schooling, or who could use their connections in government and the banks and to get scholarships. When I went to the University of Minnesota to study biology, I had to work to assist my school fees. I did not come home during summer holidays because I had to work to stay in school. And I am forever grateful that my mother, father, and sisters used to send me money to help pay my fees and living expenses. I'm from a typical Bahamian family. I fall within the 67% of Bahamian families in this country from single parents. And while growing up, as far as I was concerned, there was no difference between me or someone who came from a double parent home. There was no difference. I will never forget the love and sacrifice of my parents. So I honor the sacrifice of Bahamian parents and guardians who work hard to give their children an education. My government, Mr. Speaker, will do everything in our power to help hard-working parents and guardians who want to better life for their children. Mr. Speaker, under our far-reaching and ambitious preschool to university free education strategy, we are aggressively promoting social mobility, social equality, and social justice. Just like this country helped to lift me up, it is my mission to lift all boats and to lift up poor Bahamians, to lift up their heads to the rising sun of a better and brighter Bahamas. By example, we are removing or reducing duties on a variety of school supplies, primarily for preschool, primary, junior, and high school students. Mr. Speaker, in this budget, we have allocated a total of $21 million for tuition grant programs at the University of Bahamas and BTVI. And under these programs, the government will provide for payment of tuition and mandatory course-related fees for all full-time Bahamian students. Under the UB tuition grant alone, we estimated that over 1,500 students will be eligible to benefit from this program. As the university anticipates that there will be over 1,500 full-time students enrolling for the 2019-2020 academic school year. This includes both new and returning students. Prior to this new program, the total spending on public scholarships and related support to BTVI and UB totaled $5.8 million. We are now increasing it to $21 million to fully fund these expanded grant programs that will now effectively cover all Bahamian full-time students. The difference between the 21 million and the 5.8 million represents 15.2 million in money that students would have otherwise had to come up with to fund their education. There will be some $15.2 million that will now be put back into the hands of these students and their parents, including working class and middle class Bahamians striving for better lives. Think of the burden this lifts of the students or parents who would have had to pay $5,000 or $6,000 a year to UB. That is money they can save or spend on critical items or simply not have to borrow. Mr. Speaker, that's empowerment. Let me address a matter Exuma said. The member for Exuma and Ragged Island said we are interested in special interest groups. He also said special interest groups are always protected by the government, us. I want the member for Exuma to listen to me carefully. Yes, we do have an interest in a group. We do. But that group that we have an interest in are the young people who represent the future. That group is the poor whom we want to uplift. And that group is the family islands who we want to ensure have the same benefits in Nassau as they're entitled to. So that's the group that we display special interest in. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, for that group that we are interested in, that is why we are providing free education. Preschool, as well as university. That is why we are providing business loans and grants. 25 million to that group. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we are providing $100,000 grant to the inner city barbers, beauticians, landscape vendors, etc. Mr. Speaker, that is why we have introduced the incentives for an inner city project. And yes, Angliston, we will introduce a program to remove derelict vehicles from the inner city, which includes Baintown, Centerville, St. Barnabas, Angliston.
Yes.
Make sure you do that right
And Mr. Speaker, if tourists or individuals are now moving into our inner city via Airbnb, it's essential that we clean our inner city and ensure that it is safe. The program that we will introduce, Mr. Speaker, so Angliston would hear, the program that we would introduce, individuals with derelict cars in their yards would be given or paid $50 to have their vehicles removed. So they are incentivized to have the area cleaned. But I want to say to the member for Exuma again, in terms of special interest group, so he understands the group that we have special interest in. Family islands, the poor, and young people. He will understand why we went to University of Bahamas last year and this year and recruited individuals from the University of Bahamas to work within the government sector. That is why we recruited 4 individuals, and 3 came from the Economic and Accounts Department from the University of Bahamas to be employed for 1 year within the Ministry of Finance, after which they are granted scholarship to attend the most advanced university, obtain a master's degree in economics, and return back to the Bahamas. And that is why we went just recently and recruited an additional 4 students from the communications department of the University of Bahamas, so as to help to build the government, so that we can have a better government and they can have a better future, as opposed to what you wanted to do to them. So Exuma, now you understand. If you want a point of order, I would gladly sit. But now you understand the special group that we are interested in. And I would hope that you one day would show some interest in that group. So yes, Ragged Island, that group will always remain special to us. Mr. Speaker, my administration recognizes the value in ensuring that our citizens are given opportunities to advance themselves. Education from the preschool level all the way to tertiary level is absolutely imperative to the development of an individual. That is why we have made it our goal to create an educational environment in which each and every Bahamian have access to quality education that will equip them for their future. In our 2017 manifesto, we stated that our governing philosophy for education is in line with the 2016 working draft of the National Development Plan Secretariat. The draft identified 5 key areas or challenges in our country's educational system. And they include, Mr. Speaker, the national skills deficit, the substandard numeracy, literacy, and oracy levels, the lack of inclusiveness in society, the lack of inclusiveness in education, and unemployment. We continue, Mr. Speaker, to be guided by these core challenges in developing our educational initiatives each year. It is the philosophy and vision of this government that full university education must be accessible for all. We believe in taking care of Bahamians by actually equipping our citizens with the very educational opportunities that they need to create wealth for themselves and to build this country up while doing so. Education is a key tool to achieving this. This is why we have made it a top priority. The Free National Movement is committed to ensuring that over time, all 3- and 4-year-olds have access to a quality preschool education. Our Universal Pre-Primary Education Initiative seeks to ensure that all Bahamian children have the opportunity to receive early education, which will prepare them for further education and training. And to expand this initiative the Ministry of Education will partner with approved private preschools through a voucher program for 500 to 1,000 spots annually. Upon application to the Universal Preschool Program, applicants will first be directed to government-operated facilities, and once all of the spaces in government-operated public preschools are taken, we will provide vouchers for students to attend a private preschool that has met national standards and that has been approved by the government. The voucher, Mr. Speaker, will be worth approximately $2,000 per year and will be paid directly to the selected private preschool to cover tuition and learning supplies for the preschooler. This is a prime example of my government's commitment to expand the use of public-private partnerships. By using private preschools under this initiative, we can reach children in New Providence, Grand Bahama, and the areas so dear to me, the Family Islands. It also allows us to keep both public and private schools accountable. It will ensure that all preschools meet the standards set by the Preschool Council and the National Accreditation and Equivalency Council of the Bahamas. It also acts as an incentive to entrepreneurs, as more Bahamians may now be inclined to start a preschool, knowing that the government will financially support students in their school who are eligible under this program. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, and Exuma, I want you to see how much we love to give Bahamians opportunities, uplift Bahamians. So don't look down in that book. You look down to keep your ear open. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to announce, I am pleased to announce that as part of the expanded support to small businesses, my government will set aside $1 million initially through the Small Business Development Center and the Business Entrepreneurial Venture Fund for the development of preschools. This funding will support equity and loans up to $150,000 to qualifying educational institutions that offer preschool education and that are participating in the Ministry of Education's Universal Preschool Program. This is for schools that are participating as well as those that will participate in the program. And these sums, Mr. Speaker, will provide private preschool operators the means to expand their facilities to meet the demand for preschool seats that will be created by this program. We will also promote access to Crown land for the development of preschools. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to talk about Crown land soon, but I just want to say now that we don't want a situation where students in New Providence have advantage over Family Islands. And therefore, a part of our land program that I'll announce as I move forward, part of our land program is to provide free land for Bahamians on the Family Islands who want to embark in this business. Remember, they would get there. They'd be able to build. They would be able to build their facilities duty-free and the supplies, etc., they can bring in. This is to ensure that we create entrepreneurs and to ensure that we have facilities so that there'll be no difference between our students or populace in the Family Islands versus New Providence. Mr. Speaker, but I would elaborate further as I advance how we're going to deal with our land program. And I am sure that the member for Golden Isles would be very happy to hear how we plan to deal with this natural resource of Bahamian people. Mr. Speaker, participating in an early child education program for 3- and 4-year-olds involves literacy, mathematics, and numeracy skills. What is perhaps the greatest benefit of preschool education is that it can improve the lives of children across all social and income levels. This is why we have made it our goal to ensure that children from low-income households are able to receive preschool education under this initiative. This may be one of the greater poverty reduction initiatives in the history of this country. This may mean that children from working class households can be afforded the same opportunities as those in high income households. This means, Mr. Speaker, that every Bahamian child may be prepared to receive equal access to success. Mr. Speaker, I used to hear that the only real estate is real estate. When you own land, you can build on it. You can build a house, some apartments, or a business. You can farm on the land or grow any particular food of your choice. You can use the land as collateral and take to the bank. Some weeks ago, I went to Spring City, Abaco for a ceremony for the handing over of conveyances, deeds, and keys to new land and homeowners in Abaco. 3 of the new homeowners were in their 20s. One was 22. The other was 24. And another was 28. And they were young people who were excited to own their own home. At 22, I didn't even own a bicycle. Mr. Speaker, I was still in school. Mr. Speaker, access to land and the opportunity to own land is one of the greatest ways to generate and to build wealth across this generation. In this spirit, my government, in keeping with what former FNN governments have done, is embarked on an ambitious effort to ensure that thousands more Bahamians have greater access to land. This process will take time and has a number of components. There are many Bahamians still living or through their wills after death who want to pass land on to their immediate family. What has too often made the cost of passing on such land a burden are the taxes families have to pay to pass such land on to their families. To relieve all Bahamians of what can be quite a burden, my government, Mr. Speaker, is eliminating the taxes on transferring or selling land to an immediate family member. Mr. Speaker, imagine an older lady who wants to pass a piece of land on to her children after she passes away, or a father or mother who wants to pass on a piece of land to a son or a daughter before an upcoming marriage. Quite often, the taxes are too high and a barrier to passing on land to an immediate family member. In removing these taxes, we are making it easier and much less costly to pass on wealth from one generation to the next. This will be one of the greatest measures to help all Bahamians to have greater access to land. And this will affect scores of Bahamian families. I know a young Bahamian entrepreneur who wanted to purchase land from his father so that he can expand his business. And he told me that he had to pay $50,000 in taxes. This was money, Mr. Speaker, that he could not put into his new business. And under our reform, he would no longer have to pay such taxes when getting land from an immediate family. Mr. Speaker, this comment speaks for itself. Mr. Speaker, after further consultation, we have enhanced our tax reform on land transfers even further. For those persons who currently hold their land in a company, when they transfer land to an immediate family member from that company, they would no longer have to pay taxes. Furthermore, persons would no longer have to pay taxes when there is no change in beneficial owner on the transfer of land. This includes, but is not limited to, when the transfer is made from person to his company or vice versa. Our mission, Mr. Speaker, in the FNM is to lift up all Bahamians, including the working class and the middle class. We believe in one Bahamas for all Bahamians. Mr. Speaker, when the FNM came to office in 2007, the conference room at the old office of the Prime Minister was stacked up to the ceiling with files upon files upon files of applications for Crown land. The PLP never got around to dealing with them. Just as the FNM worked hard before to grant Crown lands to Bahamians, we are going to make sure that thousands more Bahamians have their own real estate in the form of Crown land. That's the problem. Mr. Speaker, access to land and the opportunity to own land includes land reform. This is an initiative of my government. I am pleased to report that efforts are ongoing with respect to the regularization of Crown land leases and grants. The Land and Surveys Department is presently engaged in an extensive exercise which, in due course, will enable us to better manage the Crown land leases and grant processes. In particular, we are carefully addressing outstanding approvals for Crown land leases and grants. We are employing a systematic approach in this phase of our efforts. We will commence in short order with the settling of matters for approved Crown land leases and grants within the Maikal constituency. The islands of Great Inagua, Mayaguana, Auckland, and Crooked Island. Maikal, Speaker, I want to commend the member of Maikal who had pointed out that there are many members, many residents, citizens, Bahamians, in the Michael area who have applied for Crown lease and grant for years and years and have never been dealt with. She had convinced me that Michael should be priority, that we should start in the south and move north. Michael, I want to say that I've listened to you. I've heard your plea. I've traveled through the various family islands, and I agreed on your constituency, Inagua, Maguana, Akron, Crooked Island, and Longkey will be the first to be dealt with. I wish to inform those who have applied for Crown leases or grants that their applications will receive attention in the next phase. But it's only right and fair. It is only right and fair that we first deal with those who have already paid for their land or who have been granted land, but who are waiting for final documents. We will continue to do all we can to have Crown land leases and grants in the hands of the Bahamian people. My government remains focused on fulfilling its commitments to regularize Crown land matters. This will enable, Mr. Speaker, more Bahamians to have a stake in their country and to be empowered by means of land ownership. We will keep the Bahamian public informed accordingly as we carry out this exercise. Mr. Speaker, as I said, there are too many Bahamians who are trying to get a piece of the rock, who want to own their own home, who want to go in farming, who want to establish bed and breakfast hotels so that they can become a part of this new hotel industry that we're seeing today. So the program would be done in phases. Those individuals who have leased Crown land, that have buildings, home, or have been promised a grant, will be given their grants. That would be phase number one. I want Bahamians to understand that we're starting from the south for a reason. You can get bogged down in Nassau, and the islands are always ignored. Right. So we start from the south and move north. Nassau, Andros, and others are not excluded. We are all one Bahamas, and everybody will be included. But it takes time. Those individuals, so Mr. Speaker, we have a dilemma, and I'm just going to throw it out. So those who are leasing and have facilities on it would be given grant. Those who have applied for lease with no facility on, they would be the second phase in terms of grants. And then the third phase, you'd be encouraging individuals to apply so that they can build homes, they can build bed and breakfast hotels, boutique hotels, because it's essential for Bahamians to move into that business today. Because the foreign nationals are building second homes, and their homes will become a part of the new futuristic hotel inventory or room inventory, and Bahamians will lose their own land. You already know. So it's essential that we get Bahamians into that market as quickly as possible. Now, this is where I want Golden Isles and others to listen, Because this is a controversial matter. This is a controversial matter. And this is something that bothers me quite a bit, Mr. Speaker. Land is wealth. Land is also natural resource of Bahamian people. Crown land is owned by the Bahamian people. My fear is that if an individual, and this is human nature, if an individual receives a crown land today, bed and breakfast, hotel, whatever, be it by the waterfront or whatever, and they pay $1,000, they will flip it tomorrow to a foreign national for $100,000 or whatever. That's human nature. And if that happens, what it means is we are defeating the purpose, because we would be giving the land to the foreigners. What I'm proposing that can be done, and I want the Bahamian people, and you too, understand, I want you all to help me with this, to help us with this. What I'm proposing is that the crown land remain within the hands of the Bahamians. There's no objection to selling, but if you sell, you can only sell to Bahamians, because that is crown land. In special circumstances, if there are special circumstances, hold on, if there are special circumstances, then you must apply to government so that approval can only be given by government, and that approval the House should be informed that certain rights are now being given outside of our natural element. So that is something I'm toying with, but that is a way we would keep the land inventory always for the Bahamians. But private land is different. Private land you can sell, but not the crown. The crown must always remain with us. For generations to come, you sell within and among ourselves. Private, you can sell to whomever you want. So that is something we must think about. So those in the Family Islands and other places, this is a proposal we would put forth. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure they would see there's been some complaints about the cost of my travels through the Family Islands, etc. And some say I've been campaigning and doing this. But let me inform them. As I travel through the Family Islands, I expect land surveyors to accompany me. That's an extra cost. So that the land surveyors can survey those lands, so when they leave, individuals can have their grant in their hand. Now, if I am wrong for spending a few extra dollars for traveling through the Family Island to give the Bahamians what is rightfully theirs, then you tell me, opposition leader. So, Mr. Speaker, our great challenge is to bring an antiquated and often outdated crown land system into the digital and modern era. As part of the process improvement efforts of the Land and Surveys Department, manual records are being put into digital form. And many Bahamians, as well as realtors and lawyers, know well how backward the system has been and the need for ongoing reform. We want to be, Mr. Speaker, boy, I've been here long. Huh? Y'all want a break? I got more hot stuff. I got hot stuff for you, Trevor. Now remember, I'm Travis. You see,
That's good stuff.
if y'all let me take a break, I can think of more things.
Yeah, man. Go on.
Anyhow, we want to be as fair and accurate in this process as we can. Mr. Speaker, I am also pleased to note that beginning with this budget, Travis, you want to hear this now, household furniture, stoves and refrigerators will now be duty-free in in economic empowerment zone and new government subdivisions. Now, you must remember, the government has dropped the duty on furnitures from 45 to 25%. While sitting over there with Travis, he said to me, PM, that's not fair to my people. My people need even greater incentives and benefits. If your navel string is next to mine in Baintown, then do something. Don't dig up your navel string. Don't chop it up. Protect it. And therefore, while the general populace will be paying 25% on furnitures and duty, us, me, and you, Travis, will be paying nothing. So, member for Baintown, me sitting over there, only for Baintown, only inner city. So, what's that? Boy, please. So Travis, I sat next to you, and you have convinced me. I can't sit next to you too often. I don't know what else you would convince me to do. I was in the back of Miriam, and she convinced me that her people need help. I'm going to stay on this side. So, amendments to the existing legislation for the economic empowerment zone will be made so that you would be duty-free as opposed to 25% like all of us. Hopefully, I also note that the following areas, and Angliston, you want to hear this, I see you on that phone. I also note that the following areas will soon be newly designated as economic empowerment zones also. Fox Hill, areas of Fox Hill, Camp Road, St. Barnabas, Angliston, and Gambia. I don't know why y'all don't zone means Gambia. Gambia. For all other Bahamian households, household furniture will be reduced.
You got to come sit next to the Prime Minister.
From 45 to 25%. Home refrigerators. Now, I've said that for all households throughout the Bahamas, household furnitures would be reduced from 45 to 25%. Yes. Within those specific zones that's already been declared, it would be reduced from 45% to 0. And refrigerators are already duty-free. However, there will also be no duty on such items in the economic empowerment zones, and in Fox Hill, I think you need to listen to this, and newly created government subdivisions, meaning that Lionel Davis falls within government subdivision. So they would have furnishings for duty-free. The new Carmichael subdivision that we are constructing, I think with 320 lots,
Oh, yeah.
will also be a part of the duty-free zone. So they would be able to build,
Honorable members.
and their furnishing would likewise be free. They are part of the new government program. The government program allows new government subdivisions duty-free to build and duty-free furniture. Not the ones the PLP messed up in the past, the new ones coming up. And also the 10 lots in Sunset Close. Yes. Mr. Speaker, it is truly amazing. It's truly amazing, but no longer surprising that some of the former cabinet ministers of the Christie Davis government that was overwhelmingly rejected by the Bahamian people are continuing the route for failure. And let us never forget, and this is important, so let us never forget that one former PLP cabinet minister boldly declared that God made the Bahamas for PLP. No, Mr. Speaker. No. God did not make the Bahamas for PLP. God made the Bahamas for all Bahamians.
Chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rum Kings, and Salvador. On a point of order.
I know it's difficult.
Honorable members.
I know that it is extremely difficult for the Prime Minister not to engage in his political rhetoric. But what I would wish him to identify is I've never heard a minister of the previous government cabinet ever utter the words that he is saying. And I would want him to establish that and establish that, because I have not heard it. And it's something like that, as outrageous as that would have been said, it would have come to our attention.
Anyhow, Mr. Speaker, I get hot. And I just get warm up, but so I'll come back.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Angleston. On a point of order.
On a point of order, Mr. Speaker, I had intended to wait until the Prime Minister had finished, but because Cat Island made a point of order, the Prime Minister told this Parliament that in October 2016 that the Children's Ward was hit by a hurricane, and that instead of addressing that issue, the Progressive Liberal Party government spent millions on carnival and partying, I think he called it. I am advised that that information is palpably false, that a contract was awarded for $385,687.07 to repair the roof, that the work started in October 2016, the month of the hurricane, was completed in May 2017, and that it is this administration which stopped the continuous work on the Children's Ward. The Prime Minister has misled this Parliament, Mr. Speaker.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on a point of order that the member for Engliston is misleading this House. And unless I would wish that the member of Engliston either produce the evidence that she purports to have or withdraw her last comment regarding the fact that this administration stopped the work on the roof.
The work started in October 2016.
That is not evidence. No.
2017.
Honorable member. Honorable member.
Withdraw it.
The Prime Minister
Honorable member.
Yes.
Just a moment, Honorable Member. There are two apparently issues on the floor. One, with issues on the floor. There's an issue of whether any work was done, and then there's an issue of whether it was stopped. So we propose to deal with those when we return. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are two issues that is on the floor at this point in time, and Mr. Speaker, I think this is an ample place for us to break, to give the Prime Minister also an opportunity to finish his contribution after our luncheon break. So, Mr. Speaker, I do move that the House do suspend until 3 p.m., when we will return back to the House to the business of this House.
I second that, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House do suspend until 3 p.m. this afternoon. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. It's ordered that the business of this House stand suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.